Gridiron Warriors take the field in an epic battle that is larger than life. It is called Texas High School Football. Only one show can bring the greatest sport from the greatest state into focus. Lone Star Gridiron.
Joined now by Todd Dodge on Lone Star Gridiron on our Coach That Makes a Difference segment. I wanted to ask you, first of all, I want to go back to Port Arthur where you were born, and I want to reminisce on some days with you playing with Port Arthur Jefferson, making it to the state championship game to play Odessa Permian back in 1980. Yeah. Brent Duhan, that's just a great team y'all had.
And we did. We went wire to wire, or almost wire to wire, the number one team in the state. You know, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine had us the number one team in the state going into the 1980 season. We won 14 in a row and got beat by Permian in Texas Stadium for the state championship, which was just a tremendous heartbreak, but a great Permian team. But that was a very special team. We had four of us off of that team signed with the University of Texas: myself, Brent Duhan, Robert Smothers, and Don Holloway, and then had two or three others the next year. So it was a very good team. And, it's kind of one of those, we look back every time we get together, we say we were about one quarter of football away from being considered maybe one of the greatest of all time, high school football teams. Instead, we were just another team that got beat in the state championship game. So that's one that stuck with us for a long time. But it also made me aware of the greatness of the Permian tradition.
And that's where the passing part for you really started in high school. Having a receiver like Brent Duhan to throw to, but having the offensive line to give you the time to do it is extremely important. It's almost like you were a coach then almost.
Well, I was very fortunate to be coached by a guy named Ronnie Thompson, who still lives in Port Arthur now. And Coach Thompson was one of those guys who was way ahead of his time as far as throwing the ball. When everybody was running split back veer and the wishbone and wing tee back in those days, we were throwing the ball out of three wide, two back, and then some four wide stuff, some shotgun stuff. I mean, we were throwing the ball 30 times a game in 1979 and 80. Had outstanding. Brent Duhan was, if people do their research, is one of the greats of all time in the state of Texas. Wide receivers, had a guy named Robert Smothers, a guy named Rick Weibel, a guy named Shea Walker, Patty Doyle, just on and on and on. Really, and we had a lot of really good players, good running backs. Bruce Miller, who's Jamal Charles' uncle. It just goes on and on. Those were some great times. But Ronnie Thompson was our coach, was the guy that would take a group of quarterbacks and wide receivers, and he did such a great job of molding that room or that unit. And we were kind of ahead of our time a little bit back in those days.
How much did it help you going to the University of Texas, having Brent there with you and just being able to play at that level?
Oh, yeah. Well, Brent and I, when we were getting recruited, we both had the one place that we had in common was the University of Texas as far as our visits. I can remember him being highly sought after by LSU, and we both were highly recruited by Brigham Young at the time, and I was recruited by Ohio State, and so we were kind of all over the map in some of the places, and but Texas is where we both ended up and wanted to be.
You got into coaching, went to Rockwall as an assistant first, and you kind of made your way up to being a head coach. What, Cameron Yo?
That's right. My first head coaching job was in 1994 at Cameron, and Cameron was one of those places, a great tradition. It was a great place to get my first head coaching job. I was there 2 years. Still got some great friends in Cameron, great memories. It's crazy how time flies. I've got guys that played for me now that I've seen out at coach school that are in coaching now, and then got kids that are teenagers. So. Then went to back to the Metroplex and Newman Smith, Fossil Ridge, and then landed, of course, at Carroll in 1999-2000, and was there for 8 years.
What was that run like at South Lake Carroll? The state championships, being a part of a program where winning is the only thing accepted.
Well, I love being at places that have great tradition. I love having places that have high expectations. When I went to South Lake Carroll, my boss was Bob Ledbetter. He hired me. He was athletic director. Of course, Coach Ledbetter, everybody knows, was the head coach during the three state championships during the 3A years. One of the things I did is go back to him and say, listen, we're so different, philosophy-wise, offense, defense, but I can learn so much from you, Coach, about just the intangibles of coaching a state championship caliber team. There were so many hours that we spent together. There's those little bitty things of the motivation type of things and just organization, and really bring, and some of the things that he'd seen kind of drop by the wayside, some traditions, and that's where Protect the Tradition came from. I came up with that slogan in the spring of 2000, and somebody asked me, what do you want to put on a T-shirt? And I said, as long as I'm here, the only thing needs to be protect the tradition, is honor what came before you. And we got on a roll there from 2002 through 2006, and literally played 80, as many games as you can possibly play in a 5-year window. It was an awesome run.
Going back to North Texas, you'd been there for as an assistant coach, but being there as a head coach, what did you learn about that? And maybe what would you say to other coaches out there who are thinking about making that jump to the collegiate level?
Well, you can always look in that crystal ball, and I've been asked a lot of times through the years, do you regret it? And I said, no, I don't live my life in regrets. There are definitely things that I learned, and if I did it over again, or if I had advice to give to people, probably a better way to go into college football would be to go a coordinator or position coach route. It just happened to be that North Texas wasn't offering me the offense coordinator job. They were they wanted to talk to me about the head coaching job. It was a little bit of a no-brainer from a standpoint of ultimately, helping take care of my family. But the one thing that you learn when you go to the collegiate level, there are so many more people that are involved in your players' lives than just you and your assistant coaches. The equipment room, the strength and conditioning coaches, the sports information director and all of his people, academics. There's just so many other people. And one thing that if I did it over again, I would do a better job of educating all of the people that touched my team into my philosophies on how we were going to do things. And I was so anxious to meet my team and get that going. And we got the job on January 1st, and our kids were on Christmas vacation. I didn't really get to meet my team full-fledged about 15 days after I got the job, unless they were just trickling in. So that was when I first got the job. I was so anxious to get around them and teach them my philosophies and how we were going to do things. So, I know one thing in the big picture, it made me a better coach.
Ebby Neptune going to Westlake, stadium's named after him. It was a perfect fit for you.
Yeah, was fortunate enough to marry into, if anybody's seen my wife, they know I outkick my coverage like most coaches. It seems like we have. But married into Ebby's family in 1986, and he was one of the great mentors of mine. Not only was my father-in-law, but just a great friend. We lost Ebby in 2012, and we're back at Westlake now, and so so proud to be back and to really just to any way we possibly can, Elizabeth and I, to bring back the great Westlake tradition. We were fortunate we won the Lone Star Cup this past spring, and it's the first time that Westlake has won the Lone Star Cup since 2001 or 2 when Ebby was there, and so that was a great accomplishment for all of us. But I know he would have been proud of all of our coaches, the way they worked, and all of our athletes.
And finally, I just wanted to ask you here on LoneStarGridiron.com, the fact that the way your team lost in the championship game to North Shore, what do you tell them going into this season to kind of just pick their spirits back up and, remember that how close they were to winning it all?
Yeah, well, I just reflect to them about, how we got there, the journey that got us there. I talked to them a lot about already our returning players there that should be really good players going next year. I remind them how we did it last year. And every place that you go, there's a little bit of a blueprint that starts to get set on how to do it the next year. And, that's the way we did it when we were at South Lake through the years. And it's kind of in place where we are now. But every program starts to get their deal. This is always going to be that way where we really get the players. And because it's not always a given that a guy, if he plays really well as a junior, that he plays better than that as a senior. A lot of times it's the case is he doesn't. And that's one of the things that's going to be such a key to our success is the guys that are returning that played 16 games, that they come out like gangbusters and play really well early.
You like your ring?
I love it. I thank y'all so much, and I'll show it to our staff because they all earned it too.
Very good. LoneStarGridiron.com. Todd Dodge, thank you very much. We'll catch you next time.
Appreciate it.
LoneStarGridiron.com. Access the complete history of Texas high school football, over 100 years of information, win-loss records, coaching histories, individual stats, records, and more. Lone Star Gridiron, the authority on Texas high school football.